Welcome to another episode of our Unicorn Leader interview series here on the C-Suite podcast. My name is Russell Goldsmith, and together with Debbie West, we are thrilled to be joined online by Emma Hagan, the newly appointed UK CEO of ClearBank. And it's actually a welcome back to the podcast to Emma, as we spoke with her at Money 2020 last year. Founded in 2015, ClearBank provides both clearing bank services and an embedded banking API to financial institutions. So welcome to the show, Emma. Now, we actually featured ClearBank on this Unicorn series back in October 2020 when I spoke to your Group Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director, Charles McManus. So after 40 interviews in the series, you're actually the first company to be invited back. But for anyone who hasn't listened to that episode, or for new followers of this podcast, I thought maybe we could start by you just telling us a little bit more about the company and also what's changed in almost the 4 years since I spoke with Charles.
Sure. Well, fantastic, and thank you for having us back. So fundamentally, we haven't changed our business model. So we are still, as we were back in 2015, a purpose-built, technology-first clearing bank, really built on the premise of being able to provide faster, safer, and more reliable banking infrastructure. And as you said in the intro, to primarily regulated financial institutions to allow them to innovate and provide their kind of unique business models out into the market. And when we launched originally, and probably when you spoke before, we were the first new full-service clearing bank in the UK for 250 years. And for all that time before, the clearing infrastructure in payments really remained unchanged and unchallenged, and legacy banks were relying on kind of outdated technology and very antiquated systems and ways of working. As we were really founded with the ability and the thought of providing something different and addressing a gap in the market, and particularly as many new financial institutions and fintechs come along and are looking to disrupt traditional verticals in banking, as we were really there to provide that platform for that innovation to happen. Our business model is still founded on the financial safety and that thirst for innovation, which is still true today. And so with that modern technology stack, we plug directly into all of the banking and payment infrastructure clearing systems in the UK. And we're also unique in that we keep the money that we get through customers directly at the Bank of England for our GBP deposits. And so that's really there all of the time. And so very low risk for people who choose to work with us. And so with that, and you can see that through the proof point in terms of who chooses to work with us. So, for example, of the last 36 Bank of England authorised banks, 15 of them chose to work with us. And so we see that as a big proof point in the model. But a lot has changed since you last spoke to Charles back those 4 years ago. And so that business model has really proven true in the UK. So now we're over 750 staff in the UK business as compared to 4 years ago. We have over 230 financial institutions who use our platform, and that's up from about 120 in 2020. So that's really kind of increased, again, as a proof point of why that gap in the market existed and why there was space for somebody like ClearBank to really disrupt what was happening. We've also worked with, on our embedded banking side, we've added partners to the platform, so the likes of Chip and Raisin and Wealthify, who are providing great savings products and marketplaces to end consumers. And across all of the other metrics, we've also seen tons of growth, again, hugely successful and very exciting for us to be able to support our customers. So, for example, we're up to 111 million in terms of income versus 10 million in 2020. And up to over 6 billion at year-end 2023 in terms of customer deposits. And again, when you see that compared to 2020, when it was around 1 billion of customer deposits, you can see how much the business has grown in just that 4-year period. And bear in mind, I think the kind of broader landscape and the economic changes that have gone on, again, we see that as kind of enormously successful. And again, hopefully proof that what we were trying to do has really worked. And hopefully we continue to build on that success in the years to come.
Yeah, that's really impressive growth, Emma. And now you are taking on a newly created role of CEO of ClearBank UK, having been formerly the Chief Risk and Compliance Officer at the company. So what does the new role mean for you, and what does it mean for the business?
I think the really exciting part about the new role is it's because of the international expansion And so we had always had this dream that if the business model in the UK was really working well, and we had, I'll call it, anticipated correctly that there was really this big gap in the market and something new to offer, that we would look to take that business model international. And so this newly created role is really that kind of step in that international growth, but reflects also our commitment to the UK. So with the excitement around potentially taking ClearBank's business model into new markets, what we didn't want to lose was our fundamental commitment to the UK market and continuing to build all that success and helping support other fintechs to deliver their unique models into the market. And so we're really focused, and my focus in particular is continuing to deliver best-in-class services, continuing to grow the customer base in the market, and also looking at more opportunities to be innovative and disruptive in that banking infrastructure space, as well as taking advantage of that international expansion and how we can help support our UK customers in terms of, for example, their European operations and other markets as we grow.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. And are you able to confirm how much funding the business has had to date and where that's been invested?
So our most recent investment was the 175 million when we brought Apax Digital into the shareholder base, and that happened in March 22. Obviously, it takes a while to complete those deals, and that was alongside our kind of big existing two investors. And really, as we've done all along, that investment has really been in kind of technology and people, and to continue to build out our fundamental infrastructure platform and look for innovation. And obviously, part of the investment, as we said at the time, was really to help that international expansion. So how do we bring that business model into new markets? And we've seen the outcome of all of that investment, both in terms of the work that we've done so far on building out international expansion, as we've talked about, the reason why I'm in the role, but also that we've been able to be profitable. And that's been a really big milestone for us. And we've always been about being sustainable, scalable, here for the long term, and about kind of sustainable growth as we look across all of that fantastic track record to date and what's to come. And so right at the end of 2022, with the benefits from that investment, we hit profitability on a month-on-month basis, and 2023 saw us profitable for the full year with a pre-tax profit of 18.4 million. And again, as a fintech that's there to serve all of that broader FI community, it's really important that we achieve that kind of sustainable growth, so that we're here for the long term as those people who are coming into the market and those that are looking to build and scale their businesses have a strong and resilient partner to work with.
Emma, you touched on moving into new markets, international expansion. We're recording this just after the news that you guys have been granted your European banking license. So first of all, congratulations on that. Could you talk us through what this means for the business and what it means for the structure as well?
Thank you. So we're obviously really excited about that. It's been a lot of hard work through the last period to get there with it. And I think, as we've touched on, really it was about bringing ClearBank's UK successful business model into the EU market. And so what we're doing fundamentally in Europe is very closely aligned to what's proven successful in the UK. And we've taken all the learnings from the UK market to help us with that EU entry and with the licensing process. So as you say, we did receive very recently, at the time of recording, last week in fact, our credit institution license from the ECB under the supervision of the Dutch Central Bank. And that allows us to then go and provide clearing and embedded banking services across Europe to European financial institutions, like I say, very similar to the UK business model and the UK markets. But we are looking at a relatively careful and staged expansion into new markets across Europe, again, reflecting back on the importance of sustainability and maintaining a kind of careful control over how we do that so that we can be there for the long run. That's how we're approaching European expansion. We have a team on the ground in Amsterdam today, ready for that licensing process and as part of the licensing process. And we're looking to hire over 60 new members of staff over the next 5 years and invest around 70 million euros in that European business. So we're pretty serious about being in Europe. I think what that means for our UK customers, many of them are, if they've established in the UK, they're often, much like we have, got ambitions to expand into Europe. And so we hopefully they will follow us into Europe. And we've had about a third of our client base really interested in getting European services from us alongside the UK. Equally, there'll be European businesses that are potentially looking to expand to the UK. And again, we'll have that kind of dynamic where we can serve in both markets. And so we're really excited about that offering, that extra offering through ClearBank in both jurisdictions. But again, very careful expansion just to make sure that we get everything right as we do that, just as we did in the UK.
Yeah, excellent. So Emma, thinking back about your new role, what steps will you take to shape the culture of ClearBank UK, given that it's evolving from something that's already been established?
So it's a great question, and culture is something we talk about a lot at ClearBank. It was probably less than 10 years ago. We had 6 people in, I think it was a basement office, to that 750. And obviously with the new market comes new challenges. And we've also been hiring a lot over the period anyway. And I think I talked about how many people we've got, 750, but that was around 250 4 years ago. So you can see how big and how quickly we've grown the number of people that we've got. And so culture's been a really important part of our development in terms of defining and being really clear about the values of the company, and how also those values grow and evolve over time. And that's really been something our entire employee base has been involved in shaping. And so it's less of a kind of top-down approach as here's the values we want, everybody follow them, and much more about what is it at ClearBank that makes us special? What do we all hold true and dear to us as we grow? And how do we articulate that in a way that people can understand what it means? And that's been a really important thing, as I say, as we've grown. We've spent quite a bit of time, particularly with that international expansion over the last 12 months, and really defining that better and understanding kind of where those local geographic nuances might come in. We've also been very focused as a company on our DEI agenda, so our diversity, equity, inclusion, being a core part of our culture alongside our broader ESG program. And again, we've spent a lot of time thinking about what that means for us and how we can be responsible, sustainable partners and also provide and give something back to the ecosystem more broadly. And we see that as a really big, I'll call it ingredient for our success of our culture in the way that we welcome different perspectives, different experiences. And we are, although we're obviously badged as a fintech, we're a really interesting mix of, we're a bank, but we have that kind of innovative, technology-driven culture, and then we're a little bit of fintech too. And so bringing all of that together is really what makes us quite different. And we want to really keep that as we grow. So yes, we want to scale. Yes, we want to be in new markets. All of that is great, but we want that kind of fundamental kind of melting pot of real diversity and inclusion and different experiences to still be there too. And we've got a number of employee resources groups that have evolved over time to help support that under a broader agenda. And I'm one of the co-exec sponsors for our DEI initiatives. So that's been a really big part for me of something I'm passionate about, but I think makes ClearBank quite special in terms of how much we've focused on that alongside all of that growth journey. And so for me, that kind of my involvement in that, it's sort of evolved a little bit with the CEO role, but fundamentally we've developed that together. It hasn't been one person leading it. And so I think that kind of spirit of all of us being a big part of it and driving it together is something that we'll look to continue as we grow.
Yeah, that sounds really positive. And I love that phrase of ingredients for success of your culture. That sounds like a really good way of looking at it with all of those kind of different cultural inputs. And when it comes to internal communications and really keeping your people engaged in your business, how involved have you been in that process up to now, and how do you intend to be now as CEO?
So really involved. Again, one of the things I really have enjoyed about my time at ClearBank, I think is something we want to retain, is that really is a kind of broader business, but also even at the executive group, we're all really actively involved in internal communications. And obviously we've got our expert partners in the business who kind of take a leadership role in that, but we've always talked about it together as a collective. How do we want to communicate? What does engagement look like to us? What more do we need to do? What do we need to do different? How can we respond to feedback effectively? And so that's always been a kind of collective effort. Yes, albeit led by a CEO, but real collective effort around the table. And so for me, that doesn't really change as such. It's just something I'm even more passionate about in terms of my broader responsibilities and the bigger business I'll be responsible for. So I think for me, it's much about building on the success to date, ensuring we're listening to feedback and responding to that, but also keeping that dynamic in terms of we might have to change as we grow and get bigger. We're going international, so we've got to think about new and different ways to keep people engaged in what is hopefully a very exciting growth story. And everyone's got a really important part to play in that. And I think that's been, a big message that we've had over certainly the 4 years that I've been here, and something that we'll look to continue. So I'm really looking forward to, I'll call it, having a bigger role in that, but fundamentally keeping that same ethos and principles that we've had all along.
I mentioned earlier, obviously, we interviewed Charles 4 years ago, and we've been doing this series, ever since, in terms of interviewing leaders of unicorn businesses. I was just wondering whether or not you think the term unicorn is still as relevant now as it was then.
I think it's just as it's important still to kind of shine a light and celebrate the success stories in tech and fintech in the UK. So from that angle, absolutely. But I think it'd be hard to ignore the decline in the number of companies choosing the UK as a venue for listing. And that potentially is a symptom of a kind of broader decline in kind of the UK and London's attractiveness as a venue. I think that's something, again, we've been really mindful about, but also involved in trying to change. And we've been participating through the Innovate Finance's Unicorn Council in playing an important role, particularly through Charles, who sits as a member and is currently the chair of that group, to make sure that kind of regulatory and legal landscape maintains and retains attractiveness to fintech businesses, and that the UK is seen as an attractive place to start, grow and retain a business. So if we're able to achieve that and make sure that change, if you like, and we kind of reverse some of that trend, then I'd be hopeful that the innovation breeding that's gone on, if you like, in the UK continues, and we can sit here and celebrate kind of the next wave of I'll call it UK unicorns that grow up here and stay here and list here, and that term stays relevant.
Brilliant. Now, on that topic of unicorn leaders, one of the reasons we were so keen to get ClearBank back onto this series was actually mainly because of you being in the role of the UK CEO, because when we first started doing these interviews, 2 out of the first 3 of our guests were female. So that was Poppy Gustafsson of Darktrace, and then we had Martina King of FeatureSpace. Since then, every single guest that we've had on this series has been male, and trust me, it's not through want of trying to find a gender balance in terms of our guests. Why do you think there is such a lack of female leaders in this space?
I don't think there's a single simple answer, partly because if there was, you'd have thought we'd have perhaps changed that by now. I think it's definitely important for us to change it though, and perhaps it not be quite so hard to find people in this space to talk to. It's something that, as I talked about before, I'm really passionate about DEI, and so that's been a real big focus for me, and I will continue to do that in terms of championing all the different mechanisms and ways that we can try to change that dynamic. And I think some of that starts at kind of all levels of the company, both in terms of getting people into the industry. From a start, it's access to funding. It is about making those places inclusive enough that people want to stay and kind of progress their careers in it. It's about setting up mentorship and looking at all the various different avenues that we can help to change that statistic. ClearBank's a member of the Women in Finance Charter, again, kind of aimed at increasing diversity in senior leadership and in the financial services industry as a whole. It's kind of one of those dynamics. The technology diversity efforts are also really important. We're a member of Code First Girls to try to encourage more diversity into kind of technology. So there's lots of different parts of it. I'm kind of trying to do my bit, if you like, in terms of the industry and also ClearBank as a whole. We've got targets around increasing the proportion of women in senior leadership positions. We made quite a lot of progress in that over the last couple of years, which I'm very proud of. But we've obviously got more work in the broader industry and within ClearBank to do. I'm also lucky enough that I mentor a number of talented female individuals at ClearBank. And I think that's a really important part of people being able to talk to other people and understand kind of what might help them in terms of thinking about how do they grow their career successfully, what's right for them, how do they maintain kind of that authenticity as they go and progress their careers, and what other things might they need to think about, or what other avenues or doors can we open to help them to progress. And so I think there's lots of different avenues. There's not one simple answer, but it's definitely something that I'm committed to in my role as being a big part of trying to change.
Yeah, that sounds great. And another key topic that we regularly talk about on this podcast is AI, as you can imagine. So can you tell us how important AI is for you, and also how much of a challenge it is to keep up to date with the pace of innovation?
Yeah, so we're obviously founded a lot on innovation and technology first, as we talked about in terms of the business model. So AI is important to us. Probably the same as any other technology trend, though. I'd say we kind of keep and try and look for opportunities to innovate in lots of different spaces, and AI is one of those. So it's kind of no different, if you like, in that perspective. But there are lots of opportunities that we're exploring in terms of how do we use AI and where's the real value add for us in terms of our business? What can it help us to automate, to deliver a better service? And all of those opportunities exist out there. It's just really about picking the right ones, making sure that we're spending our time on the right areas. And I think the wonderful thing and the thing that I enjoy about ClearBank is we've got tons of opportunities out there. And so AI is one part of it, but it's not the whole. And so that is still critical for us. We also look to participate in forums, work with different partners, and also understand kind of, again, where those opportunities might best lie for us, and also look at bringing in talent. So how do we make sure that we've got the skills internally to take advantage of the right trends, to explore AI in the right way, but not necessarily just look at AI as the answer to every problem that we have as a solution. And so kind of AI sits alongside lots of different kind of areas of innovation we're exploring, including things like kind of digital assets as well.
Emma, thanks so much for spending some time with us. We've got one final question for you, and that's just really looking towards the future. What's next for ClearBank? Let's thinking about really the next, say, 12 to 18 months.
So having received our European banking license, sort of near term, a lot of focus is on launching the EU bank and delivering what we promised, if you like, the UK business model promise to the EU markets, and looking then at beyond kind of the Netherlands, what other markets in Europe are exciting. So that's a big part of kind of the near term focus. I think after that, we'll kind of look at what other markets might be attractive for us. And again, we're very client led. So what is it that our clients need, and what markets and services and products are interesting to them? So we are constantly looking at that from an innovation perspective. We're also looking at the changing regulatory environment, consumer landscape, again, at what might be the best place for us to invest our time and effort. We're looking at building out, in particular, our embedded banking proposition. We've seen enormous success in that, and I think we've offered, through those partners like Chip and Wealthify, something really different to the market that perhaps they weren't getting from the more traditional banks. And I think for us, that's an area where we're looking to build out more in the next 12 to 18 months, both on the financial services, so the FI side, as we've done to date, but also looking at the non-regulated market. So again, there are particular use cases in that space where what we've done in that regulated FI market for embedded banking could actually be really transformational outside of the regulated space. And so we're exploring that at the moment, and that for the next 12 to 18 months is likely to be, certainly from a UK perspective, a really exciting space. I think the other part that we're looking at in the next 12 to 18 months is kind of what is there in the digital asset space that might be really complementary to our kind of fiat model, and how might ClearBank offer something, again, very consistent with our business model to date, but given where things are going in the digital asset and distributed ledger technology space, again, how might ClearBank innovate in I'll call it a safe and resilient way, very consistent with our business model, but again, have that as another offering alongside the kind of fiat payment and account space. So those are sort of the areas we're exploring. So I think that's a big part of the next 12 to 18 months. But as always, we'll be listening to our customers and the market in terms of what makes most sense and what they want from us.
Sounds good. Well, listen, best of luck with all of those projects. Best of luck with the European expansion, and obviously best of luck in your new role in the UK. But for now, Emma Hagan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and record this episode. Really appreciate it. We'd love to hear your comments on today's chat. You can do that by sharing them on any of our social media feeds. Those are all linked from the top of our website at csuitepodcast.com, where you'll also find all our previous shows and supporting show notes, plus links to where you can follow us on the likes of Spotify and Apple. And if you like what you heard, please do give us a positive rating and review. If you're a unicorn leader yourself and you'd like to be part of this series, please do get in touch via the contact form on the website. Plus, of course, anyone can get in touch with any feedback you may have. And finally, you can find both me, Russell Goldsmith, and Debbie West on LinkedIn. But for now, thanks for listening and goodbye.